In this video, we look at VW, who recently threw their best chance of surviving the decade, Herbert, overboard, are in deep trouble. Will they go bankrupt? Well, every company eventually goes bankrupt. The real question is, how soon? And before we get into it, if you want to instantly unlock over 100 exclusive videos, plus my 10-year Tesla stock price targets and loads of other perks, including optional access to my Tesla valuation model, join our growing community of thousands of supporters on Patreon with the link in the pinned comment. You can also pick up some Tesla, Elon, and investment-themed merch in the merch store. So here we are over on the Doomberg website. Great article. By the way, before we get into it, I just want to ask you a question. Please let me know in the comments below. Is it just me? Or is VW's ID3 one ugly ass motherfucker? Not that I want to talk, I literally have the world's worst haircut here. I'm not judging, I'm just observing. It's almost as if automotive manufacturers are trying to make their EVs look like a steaming pile of shit so they don't actually sell. Or maybe there's consumers that actually like this. To me, it just looks so fucking tacky. Then again, I'm not a car guy, so whatever. Looks like it's been beaten to fucking death with an ugly stick. But is it just me? Let's read on. Porsche boss faces software woes keeping VW a step behind Tesla. Herbert, who's since been thrown overboard, rest in peace VW, tried to match the electric car maker's tech prowess. New CEO Oliver Blume now has more chasing to do. And speaking of VW chasing Tesla, I just wanted to once again bring up this shot from a 2011 presentation from Tesla. An internal presentation, this wasn't publicly available, it's since leaked, oops, in which Elon Musk was quoted as saying, "Second place should need a telescope to see us." This was more than a decade ago, 2011. Back when Tesla was still Tesla Motors Inc. Fast forward to 2022, and we are once again talking about VW, second place, chasing Tesla. They literally do need a fucking telescope. Tesla does what they say they're going to do. This is a brilliant example. More than a decade ago, Tesla literally swinging around their gigantic plans and saying, hey, second place should need a fucking telescope to see us. Fast forward a decade, they literally do. Good thing the overdue James Webb Space Telescope has finally launched. Hope VW can get some time on the scope soon. Herbert master plan of beating Tesla hinged on replacing calloused factory hands with the nimble fingertips of 10,000 software workers who would transform Volkswagen into a tech player. Just a quick comment here. This was the play. This was the move. This was the strategy. Herbert recognized we need to transform into a software/technology company who, also happens to make electric vehicles. This was the play, and I commend Herbert for taking this action. I also knew at the time, and said at the time, and continued to say, probably won't end well for Herbert. It's going to ruffle too many feathers. The bureaucratic, red tape encrusted dumpster fire of a company that is VW probably isn't going to enjoy these feathers being ruffled, these decisions being made, these things that are likely to save us from going bankrupt. Instead, after 2 years of what I would describe as inevitable teething pains that every other legacy automotive manufacturer will also need to go through if they're to survive the decade and the transition to EVs, after 2 years of VW electric car customers angrily stabbing at screens and board members at the world's second largest automaker pointing fingers, this has been forced out. And with it, VW's best hope of surviving the decade. Porsche boss Oliver Blume, who has now started as VW Chief Executive Officer, is all car guy rather than software guru, and got the gig by being a team player and a pragmatist. I wish Oliver Blume all the best. There's also rumours of a future Porsche IPO. This will be very interesting to see how things play out. So here's the problem. Herbert had balls, courage. He actually used his testicles, did what needed to be done, said what needed to be said, admitted VW were miles behind Tesla and were attempting to catch up, and it'll be extremely difficult. That level of courage is necessary within legacy automotive manufacturers. But as I pointed out, you ruffle too many feathers in a bureaucratic red tape encrusted dumpster fire of a company, you get kicked out, you get fired, even though you were their best chance of not going bankrupt this decade. It appears that Oliver Blume is a little bit more capable of doing what he needs to do to avoid ruffling too many feathers. When we use terms like team player, what we really mean is a little bitch who'll appease everybody and not ruffle any feathers, not stir things up too much, not take any perceived risks. Of course, the biggest risk of all is not taking those risks. Let me frame this differently. As a CEO of a legacy automotive manufacturer, you've got two options. You can play the game, keep your job, and ultimately have your company go under, or you can put your own personal concerns to the side and do and say what needs to be done and said, and ultimately end up getting kicked out of the company. This team player bullshit really means appeasing all the clowns who don't know what the they're doing, who think what you're doing is going to kill the company, who are completely blind about the cliff they're inevitably about to plunge off. This article goes on to prove my point. The probability that Blume will make dramatic changes, which, by the way, are abso-fucking-lutely necessary to avoid going bankrupt early in his tenure is low, and that risks prolonging the problems plaguing VW customers. I do just want to drill down on this a little bit. It's a great observation. The probability that Blume will make dramatic changes, again, which are necessary early in his tenure tenure is low. Let me reframe this. Let me restate this. The probability that Bloom will take the immediate, urgent, necessary actions to get VW on track to potentially avoid going bankrupt later this decade is low. Sure f***ing is. Drivers' car displays are seizing up and even going blank. For owners to gain the ability to get over-the-air updates for certain features, which is a really innovative idea, no one's ever done that before, especially not Tesla, for more than the last decade. I just have to take a moment here. I mean, seriously. Tesla's has literally been doing over-the-air updates for a f***ing decade, and other automotive manufacturers still haven't figured this shit out. But don't worry. The competition is coming, some of which may be safety critical. VW is requiring many to drop their EV off for a day at the dealership. I mean, yeah, it is pretty embarrassing. You can't figure out over-the-air software updates. You're trying to catch up to Tesla. You literally have customers bringing their car into a dealership just to get a software update. It is embarrassing, and it's a sign of the same struggles other legacy automotive manufacturers will be facing in the coming years. VW is far enough ahead to start hitting these roadblocks and obstacles. I don't think most investors are truly understanding what's around the corner for other legacy automotive manufacturers when they get to the same level of progress and awareness as VW. They're going to have the exact same issues. VW is a leading indicator of the struggles other legacy automotive manufacturers will face in the coming years. Infotainment systems relying on software described as incomplete are making their way to more models, threatening VW's position in sales and quality rankings. It's the disease that's spreading. Jake Fisher, Senior Director of Auto Testing at Consumer Reports. Sorry, I really struggle to pronounce the name of this very legitimate, not at all corrupt or incompetent organization. Sorry guys, I know it is perfect. Said in an interview, quote, "I'm talking about systems that, when you know how to use it, now it's multiple steps to do something that used to be one button. And that is a shame. It's moving backwards and making these cars worse." Fisher was one of the more than a dozen testers or owners of VW's ID series EVs and Tesla models in 7 countries who Bloomberg spoke to get a sense of just how big a technological gap Bloom has to close. Again, just want to point out the whole second place should need a telescope to see us comment from Elon Musk back in 2011. I mean, bro, talk about manifesting the future. ID drivers complained about their cars suddenly braking because of a traffic sign detection system so buggy they tend to just deactivate it, a smartphone app that's glitchy and lacking features, and challengers syncing their phone with their EV either wirelessly or with the cord. Quote, "I hadn't expected to buy a car that was unfinished," said a 31-year-old from Sweden who sold his ID4 sport utility vehicle after less than 6 months. Quote, "I expected way more." He obviously hasn't been watching this channel. These started at VW in 2015, months before the diesel emissions scandal that rocked the company to its core and ironically actually forced them to accelerate their EV plans. Unbelievable. He ascended to the top job 3 years later as the outsider who could clean up the mess, and again, this was fair, almost immediately. These cut a check for an electric vehicle battery order that almost matched Tesla's market value at the time. Quote, "I really liked what Dees did," said Barry Holleran, a 47-year-old software engineer who was one of the first in Austria to take delivery of an ID4. Quote, "He really put his neck out to make this move, and I thought as a consumer, I should support that. Personally, I'm not going to be going out buying products just because the CEO is doing what they need to do for the company not to go bankrupt, but I do understand where he's coming from here. It was a bold move. Dees was putting his neck out, as we've seen. He's now had his fucking head severed as a result, but I respect and admire the courage." Holleran said his SUV is well engineered and a good, notice the term good, not great, not stunning, not amazing, not incredible, a good, comfortable family vehicle. VW's long history of building automobiles shine through, but the software, quote, dreadful. Once again, the competition coming all over itself. Updates are infrequent and the navigation system doesn't work at all. Quote, "The saving grace is Apple CarPlay. If it didn't have that, to be honest, I would get rid of the car and I would go with a Tesla." Early in Dees's tenure as CEO, Tesla was in what Elon Musk memorably referred to as production hell, struggling to mass produce Model 3 sedans. For all the challenges the EV maker was having, Musk has said the company was weeks away from failing in 2018. Dees recognised VW needed to massively expand investment in software capabilities. One aha moment that year came when Conjob Reports initially denied a recommendation for the Model 3, saying it took longer to stop than the much larger Ford F-150 pickup. Musk tweeted the next day that Tesla would maybe be able to shorten stopping distances through an over-the-air update. The following week, Conjob Reports recommended the sedan after all, braking improved by almost 20 feet. Talk about agility. Much as that episode turned heads across the auto industry, VW and its legacy peers haven't deployed software updates nearly as frequently as Tesla. Bert Steenbergen traded in his Skoda Kodiaq for an ID4 early last year and has had 2 updates in almost 20 months. The car was sold with a promise that every 3 months there would be a software update, and that is not the case. The 55-year-old former sales director for an energy company said they should be able to deliver the software. It's not that complicated. Now, sorry to rain on your parade here, Bert, my friend, but it is that complicated. Despite the dolts who continue to say the competition is coming, oh, they're going to catch up, here's their plan, they're going to catch Tesla by 2025 because they said so. It's not easy. Let's think about this for a while. If all you've done over the past few decades, maybe even the past century or more, is manufacture vehicles, let me correct that, is to put together some parts of vehicles and have other people make most of the other things, so you're not actually doing a whole lot. If all you've done is put a little bit of shit together repeatedly, assemble parts of cars and produce them, internal combustion engine vehicles, no software at all, and now you're suddenly tasked with becoming brilliant at software, the argument that it's not just that complicated is a non-starter. I've made this example before. If you're a world-class chef, and one day you wake up and somebody tells you, hey, look, you need to become a world-class gymnast because I said so, and if you don't, you're going to die. I think most people, even if they only have half a brain, can realize, you know what? It's probably going to be slightly challenging for this world-class chef to become world-class at something they do not currently have any experience at. This is some of the shallow thinking, using the term very loosely there, that just does my head in. Every time I hear somebody say something idiotic like the competition is coming, I'm like, do you not understand that these companies don't have experience doing software? They now need to become world-class experts at software. And in addition to that, they also have to become world-class experts at thermally managing batteries, integrating batteries into vehicles, producing electric vehicles at scale profitably. And by the way, I'm not shitting on Bert here, obviously doesn't know what the he's talking about. Totally fine. But again, I do want to underscore this point. This is the same thinking or lack thereof that many analysts, many retail investors, many in the mainstream finance media are spouting. It's not that complicated. No. It is that complicated. Tesla has made it look uncomplicated. Updating its vehicles every 3 months was part of VW's long-term vision. Quote, that was a misunderstanding when we started to announce over-the-air updates, he said. Quote, our goal is also now with the ID family that we are bringing updates regularly to the customers. This is something we had to learn. It's an agile process. Yeah, I mean, these few words say so much. In essence, VW had to learn to become more agile. Incumbent automakers, including VW, are having to learn to be more nimble on several fronts to respond to Tesla, shifting to battery power from the tried and true internal combustion engines and to software from hardware. Exactly. As I said, the chef becoming a world-class gymnast, going from hardware to software, it is that complicated. Quote, it's easier to master electrification since that's a different way of converting energy and one that makes vehicles less complex. Software is a completely new area of competence that needs to be built from scratch, not the ongoing development of existing skills. Again, nail on the head. It's a totally new skill set, and the expectation that these companies can just immediately overnight become world-class at something they've never done before? Asinine. VW stumbled right out of the gate with its ID models. The software unit that Deese started when he was head of the brand set out in late 2016 to build the operating system for the vehicles, and several follow-on models derived from their modular architecture. The initial EV of the series, the ID4, only started deliveries on time in 2020 because early buyers agreed to wait months for certain functions to work. During the summer of that year, VW started a group-wide operation that at the time was called Car Software Org. Within weeks, there was an abrupt personnel change. Audi's CEO took charge, replacing an executive Deese had named to lead the VW Group's digital efforts. The unit was renamed Cariad in March of last year and put under Deese's purview in December. Taking on that responsibility proved costly. The Audi CEO commissioned McKinsey to give VW an in-depth assessment of where its software efforts stood, according to people familiar with the matter. The results, reported in May, were bleak. Cariad's decision-making structure was found to be ineffective. A couple of things here. VW's decision-making as a company is ineffective. The same is true of all legacy automotive manufacturers. Could have hired me for a lot less than McKinsey and I could have pointed this out. Every decision they're making is ineffective. All of them. Obviously, that would include their efforts in software. This should surprise absolutely no one, except again for the dolts who continue to repeat that the competition is coming. Budgets had ballooned. Surprise, surprise. And delays were going to set back launches of important Porsche and Audi models. So here's a lesson to everybody watching. You probably already know this, but everything you ever do takes longer and costs more than you expected. It should be no surprise that budgets have ballooned and delays are setting things back. Again, VW is a leading indicator of all other legacy automotive manufacturers. The report contributed to the billionaire Porsche and Peach family that majority owns VW, adding to the Clusterf that is that company, deciding in late July to oust Deese. That's right, the dinosaurs currently in charge of VW. Look to the skies and don't notice that gigantic flaming ball hurtling toward the earth that's soon to wipe them all out. It's like Deese is running around going, hey, extinction level impact, we need to do something about this, and everyone's like, yeah, get f***ed, mate, go away, there's no problems here, piss off. So while Deese is urgently scrambling, trying to build a plan for VW to deflect the asteroid, the dopey dinosaurs running the company say, there's no threat here at all, stop causing so much drama. Next minute, no more Deese. Idiots. Bloom, who spent 28 years at VW and led Porsche as the brand launched its first electric car, could have some changes up his sleeve. Whereas Deese had emphasised the need for VW to go it alone, building its own software platforms for its mass market premium brands, Bloom has been more open to working with nimble partners promising faster solutions. Now, in fairness, if Bloom has a brain, you know what he's going to be doing behind the scenes? Yo, Tesla, what's up? Anyway, we could get that autonomous software and you guys could also help us with our battery management, our thermal management stuff. Can we just get all your software, please? We'll pay, we'll license. We realize we're going bankrupt if we don't, and you've already developed solutions. Is it possible we could maybe, collaborate somehow? But I don't think that Bloom is smart enough to do this. Porsche has cooperated closely with Apple, which has mentioned the brand being among those that will integrate a new version of its CarPlay system. By the way, I don't want to skip over this. Apple CarPlay integrated into legacy automotive EVs is actually a big selling point. We heard earlier somebody saying literally they'd sell their vehicle if they didn't have this, but it's still not a sufficient long-term solution. Bloom praised the job Deese did setting a strategy for VW and said it's now time to deliver. Ah, man, the bureaucracy, the corporate wankery here. The automaker will streamline its group board of management, with the CEO focusing on strategy, quality, design, and CARIAD. Good luck streamlining its group board of management. Quote, it's normal for the build-up of a company to be an onerous process, Bloom said of the software subsidiary in an interview VW posted to its website. Quote, we will assess everything with an open mind and develop a swift implement... No, you won't, you idiots. At least they know that they need to move quickly, but VW? Sorry, not happening. For the time being, some 200,000 ID drivers are having to book drop-offs at dealerships for a hardware fix that will enable over-the-air updates to their infotainment and battery management systems. Again, reminder, Tesla's been doing this shit for a decade. VW still hasn't figured it out. VW needs to replace the 12-volt battery that acts as a secondary power source to the lithium-ion pack underneath the vehicle. There's risk the current one doesn't have enough juice to see through the software downloads lasting several hours. Again, I just want to ask, is it just me or is this, seriously, one butt-ass ugly vehicle? This fix is coming too late for some customers. A VW ID3 owner in Slovakia wrote to Deese in February after his car rapidly began to brake on its own while he was attempting to overtake a slower truck. He was convinced a major accident may have happened had he not stayed calm and slammed the accelerator pedal. And he now no longer relies on the ID3's driver assistance functions. Quote, it's a trust that's lost, and it will be hard for them to convince me again, he said. Another ID4 owner, 29-year-old who recently earned her master's in social work and has been working as a Lyft driver while she searches for a job in her field, says riders keep marking her down in satisfaction ratings because she's had to ask them to pull up a navigation app on their phone when her ID4 screen goes blank. Awkward. Once they reach the destination, she says the child locks often malfunction and trap customers in the car. But remember, the competition is coming. If I could just on the spot trade it with someone and give them the keys, I would, she said. She's also talking with her dealer about a possible buyback or trade-in. Misgivings about VW's software lagging behind. This is hilarious. Led Gao Zhao, sorry if I butchered the name, a finance manager in Shanghai, to spurn an ID6 he's tested in favour of the Model 3 he's owned for 2 years. He believes the German automaker is trailing not only Tesla, but also Chinese upstarts, and this is fair. There's not as much discussion as there should be of the progress being made in terms of EVs in China. Nothing presenting any compelling threats to Tesla, but remember, Tesla's so far ahead, second place literally does need a telescope to see them. Everyone who's that far behind Tesla, however, are in big fucking trouble. They're never catching Tesla, and they're probably never catching the Chinese automakers. Doesn't end well. It's just like when Nokia attempted to launch a smartphone system to compete with Apple. It's just quite awkward. Well said. So the big question is, can VW survive the decade? I'd say it's probably a coin toss. Even odds, 50-50, maybe not even. I do wish them well. VW is a corporate clusterfuck. Far too many people able to make decisions, to veto decisions. Brain-dead morons running the company, the dinosaurs, ousting Deese, their best hope of surviving the decade. New CEO Bloom, likely to move at a very slow pace, doesn't want to ruffle any feathers. A team player, aka don't want to piss anyone off and get fired. Next minute, company goes bankrupt. And the most stunning and amusing thing of all, despite the mountain of evidence that second place truly does need a telescope to even see Tesla, most of the dolts on Wall Street, most in the mainstream finance media, most investors out there just assume, as soon as they decide to try to catch up to Tesla, they will. It's not that complicated, as I mentioned. It really is. I hope Bloom proves me wrong, but my suspicion is about half a decade from now, I'll be covering him also being shit-canned for not making as much progress as VW had hoped. Watching VW, the competition, come all over itself, it's like watching a train wreck in slow motion. I don't know what it's going to take for people to wake up and realize what the fuck is going on. Legacy automotive manufacturers, almost universally, are screwed. They've been moving far too slow. They are years behind. In addition, they have to somehow go from not even doing software to becoming world-class. In addition, not even manufacturing electric vehicles to becoming world-class. Just have a hope of surviving the decade. In conclusion, I'd just like to briefly sing a completely irrelevant song.
If you're happy and you know it, clap your...
Yeah, that's awkward. I think what I was trying to say is everything's gonna be fine, right? Isn't it? Are we gonna be okay? I hope you guys and girls have enjoyed this video. Never thought when I started this channel I'd be making videos about the dinosaurs going extinct for a second time. But here we are. And lastly, don't forget, if you'd like to support the channel, you can join Patreon with the card in the corner or the link at the pinned comment and instantly unlock well over 100 exclusive videos and instant up-to-date access to my Tesla stock price targets. And just a quick heads up, I have posted a new update to my Tesla stock price targets and the valuation model available exclusively on Patreon. Check it out. I'm Stephen Mark Ryan, this is Solving the Money Problem, and I love you all. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you want to support the channel and instantly unlock over 100 exclusive videos, plus my 10-year Tesla stock price targets and loads of other perks, including optional access to my Tesla valuation model, join our growing community of thousands of supporters on Patreon with the link in the pinned comment. You can also pick up some Tesla, Elon, and investment-themed merch in the merch store. And if you're still watching, you're awesome. Please let me know your thoughts on today's video in the comments below, and click the card on screen now to watch the next video.